All right, folks, welcome back into another edition of the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything and all things Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Feldman. He's Carl Jones. We are back after a 2-week hiatus. Amerks not playing on this Thursday night. The NFL draft not drafted on this Thursday night. The Thursdays have been busy, so have we, but we're back to talk some high school sports.
Yeah, but don't get it twisted for those at home. We've been out at these games. We've been out and about. I know Thursdays have been a bit busy for us, but we've been able to get on the high school coverage, getting all the sports, flag football, softball, baseball, lacrosse, you name it, we've been at it. So I'm happy that we've been able to sit down and chat and talk about what we've seen over the past few weeks. But people at home, don't worry. We've still been out looking at your children out there and giving them the love they deserve.
Yeah, even today's Thursday, not normal. We're recording this 9:45 at night. Usually this is an afternoon podcast. So I've already actually been out there to some games tonight. Irondequoit flag football kicking off the sectional spring sports season for the team sports. We had some tennis already going on so far. So sectionals already in full swing. We're gearing up for a great finish, and let's get right into it. On our last podcast back in 2022 or something like that, we talked about the girls lacrosse state rankings. Now we got two more sets of state rankings out. We're going to quick dive into those here first. We'll start with boys lacrosse, Class A, with only one representative, McQuaid, 17th in the state. They've lost their last two. They're going to have some chances to get back some big wins. We're going to get into them in a little bit later on in the show. In Class B, no surprise, Victor leading the way with 6th place in the latest state rankings, the defending state runners-up. Canandaigua at 17th, Irondequoit in 18th. And these three teams have played each other fairly recently. Victor did beat Canandaigua 7-6 earlier in the season, but I just went and saw Victor take down Irondequoit 8-4 earlier this week. They got out to a big lead. They controlled that game early. So I think Victor right now, the class of Class B. But just happened earlier today, Irondequoit taking down Canandaigua 8-3. A nice victory for the Eagles, who already beat McQuaid. They are racking up some wins. And I guess maybe now Irondequoit, second banana in Class B right now.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the Eagles for a bit here. They've been ascending a little bit, right? I know they got Cooper Moore, the youngster. I believe he's a sophomore now. I know when he was an 8th grader, he was doing things on the varsity level. But he has Irondequoit, obviously a bunch of others on the team as well who have contributed. But leading the way is him, got in this team. Some big wins, top 20 this season so far. I mean, impressive. And I know they came up short against Victor, but I think Victor is a much better team than they showed the first 2 games of the year where they lost to those teams from out of Section 5 play. Now they're back doing Victor-type things. But, yeah, Irondequoit was definitely a team where you're like, man, they can put things together. This sophomore keep ascending in the right direction. They can do some nice things, and that's what they've done this year.
Yeah, I think a big, reason for Irondequoit, if they're going to have a chance to take down Victor, obviously Cooper Moore leading the way, 48 goals. He's going to be important. But Jonah Carrier getting those draw controls. A sport like lacrosse, obviously, the draw controls, gosh darn near half the battle at some point. He's one of the best in Section 5. So if he can kind of get, in a groove, if they're able to play in a sectional championship, sectional semifinal game, that'll be big for Irondequoit to see how far they can go so far this season. Class C, we've got 2 teams ranked in Section 5. HFL at 8th in the state, Palmac at 15th in the state. The Cougars, their only loss this season coming to Spencerport. They've had a nice, impressive season so far at 13-1. Palmac 13-0 so far this season, but they've kind of played some weaker competition. Really none of the even top teams in Class, A, B, or even C. So Palmac kind of a weaker schedule at this point. Then down in Class D, Penn Yan at 7th and Aquinas in 11th. Those two teams kind of seem destined for a rematch of last year's sectional championship game. Penn Yan won that one 11-6 last year. So both C and D getting a pair of teams represented in the most recent state rankings.
When I look at HFL's record, obviously they're a fantastic team led by Mr. Perriman. But I just contrast this to the girls, who are always a good team, but their schedule is so darn tough that they're like 6 and 7. And you're like, are they good? Like, are the boys that much better than them? And it's like, well, no, their entire schedule is like A and B squads. And I will say the boys also play good teams. Believe they took down Canandaigua earlier this year. So it's not like they're playing a bunch of slouches. But that always is funny to me, where the two programs, have outstanding lacrosse programs. One of the records is just much better than the other, even though the girls have always done good things this year.
Yeah, HFL with a 14-11 win over Canandaigua, and Drew Angelo going to once again be the catalyst of that HFL team as well. He just reached 1,000 face-off wins in Section 5 in his senior season. Second gentleman to accomplish that feat in Section 5 history. So HFL certainly going to be a tough out when it comes time to sectional season. Let's move over to softball, those state rankings. AAA, no teams represented, as kind of unfortunately been the trend in these Class AAA brackets so far this year for a variety of sports. AA, 4 teams in the top 15. We've got Schroeder at number 3 in the state, Thomas at number 6 in the state, Mendon number 11, the Lily Goldberg show, and then Bishop Kearney clocks in at 14th in the state. I was at the Schroeder-Thomas game. Schroeder just barely pulled it off, 3-1, a final score there. Liana DeValder leading the way on the mound for them. I believe she had 8 or 9 strikeouts. So Schroeder-Thomas kind of setting up for a little bit of a collision course, but of course, Mennon's going to have something to say about that. You get a star stud in the diamond there with Lily Goldberg. They're going to be tough, and then Bishop Kearney as well. So AA is looking to be a really fun bracket when we come time to sectional time.
As it always is. I know last year Schroeder got upset by, was that Rush Henrietta, I think, in the semifinal, or the
Rush Henrietta ended up winning it all.
Yeah, and
so,
I think
you're right.
They faced Victor in the title game, but Schroeder got upset. So yeah, this bracket usually is the one that's very talented and kind of highly contested, and that, hey, any given day on the mound or in a circle in this sport, a team can get hot. And there are many pitchers in this class specifically who can put a team on their back, whether that's Victor's pitcher, Olivia Steinnorth, you talked about Lily Goldberg, Liana DeValder. Any of these pitchers can get hot any given day, and we'll see how that shakes out come sectional time.
Speaking of hot pitchers, in Class A, Sutherland, our only team represented. Petra Hunt, of course, leading the way for the Knights. In Class B, we've got the number 1 team in all of the state, Wellsville, coming in at number 1, Bath Haverling right behind them at number 3, Mid-Lakes at 18, Penn Yan at 25. Let's go to Class C. Bloomfield at number 2 in the state, but kind of essentially number 1 in the state because the number 1 team doesn't play in NISFA. So the Bloomfield Bombers at number 2, Dundee Bradford at number 9, Avon at number 14. And then in Class D, you've got North Star ranked at 24th, Keshequa at number 4, and Friendship Scio at number 2, with quite another great pitcher in Nevaeh Ross, who had herself a weekend, Carl.
Man, talk about it. 25 strikeouts?
25 strikeouts. A completed game. So they did a little bit earlier, but 25 strikeouts the entire game. A Section 5 record, number 3 in the state. I believe they went all the way to the state championship game last year. So Friendship Scio's a good bet to go pretty gosh darn far this year again.
You rattled through all those classifications, and I think it's really cool how there's a lot of Section 5 teams near or maybe at the top of some of those classes. So I think, hey, we might get multiple, at least state representatives down there this year, if not a couple champs out of those classifications this year in softball, which is always cool to see.
Yeah, obviously Wellsville and Bloomfield, your highlights, both number 1 in NISFA. Unfortunately, I think the state tournament is coming a little bit closer. I think it's coming to like Cortland or Binghamton, something recently. But right now they're still on the island, so we can't exactly catch them too easily. But yeah, Wellsville, Bloomfield, Friendship, Scio, Schroeder, number 3 in the state, all teams that could easily go far in the state tournament. Time to get back to our segments. We'll start off with our team of the week, a team that's raising our attention, kind of a team of, I don't know, the fortnight maybe, because we've been away for so long. But Carl, who's catching your attention recently?
The Victor softball team, the Blue Devils, put on a week, winning 4 out of their 5 games. 5 out of 7, 6 out of the last 8, been doing their thing. They caught my attention when they took down Schroeder, who was previously unbeaten at the time. They beat them 2-0. And then the next day, mainly, this is the big reason why they're my team of the week, Olivia Steinnorth, the performance that she put in the circle that Saturday, 24 strikeouts, perfect game. Unfortunately got pulled, and they lost in the 10th. They lost 1-0, and I think that game they lost on an error. It wasn't even a hit, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, so I think she actually stayed in, but it can kind of count as a perfect game because in the 10th inning, they put the runner on second. So she's not really responsible for that, but she eventually got around with an error. So you look at 5 different sources, they'll call it a perfect game. I called it today on Section 5 Best a game with no hits and with no walks. So like, but no, she's really gosh darn good.
Man, I've seen it. Thank you for clarifying that because I was kind of confused. I'm like, why y'all pull her? Like, is this
It's
some pitch
very
count rule?
confusing,
Yeah,
incredibly confusing.
I'm like, is there a pitch count rule that I don't know about or something? What's going on with this? But this is a remarkable game. That's 6th all time in New York State. That record, it was the Section 5 record, and then unfortunately, Nevaeh Ross from Bishop Sayo broke it a few hours later. So Steinworth couldn't even like relish in the fact that she had a record all to herself in Section 5, not even for a whole day. This lasted a few hours or so. But then she followed that up this past week with 15 strikeouts and a win over Brighton. And then obviously in that win over Schroeder, she had 13. She's been leading the way for this Blue Devils team who was struggling a little bit. They were 6-6 at one point. 7-6, excuse me. Now they're 11-6. So they're clearly trending in the right direction this time of year. Led by obviously Miss Steinworth and all those wins, the performance in the circle. Yo, there's no way that I wasn't going to come on the huddle and talk about the Victor Blue Devils.
Yeah, they're going to close out their season with Thomas, a tough game, and they've had a really difficult schedule. That game that Steinworth went off and they lost 1-0, obviously to Haverling, ranked 3rd in the state. They lost to Bloomfield, number 2/1 in the state in Class C. Another one of their losses was to Schroeder earlier in the season, just a 3-2 result. And then they lost to Thomas earlier in the season. Once again, top 10 of the state. So their losses have been to really good teams. They haven't been certainly by big margins. I think, looking at this briefly, I think that 5-2 game to Thomas was maybe their biggest margin defeat. They lost to Bloomfield 6-2. So really close games. And, they weren't in those state rankings just probably because of some of those losses. The numbers didn't look quite as good, but good luck, getting past them in the sectional tournament. They're going to be a tough out.
Yeah, especially once again, Steiner's over here. She's on the circle. She's taking out Schroeder, holding them to a shutout in that game. Ain't no team that they're going to be scared of come tournament time.
My team of the week is one that is still undefeated. They're a baseball team, and there are 193 baseball and softball teams in Section 5. I counted up a couple days ago. The only undefeated team left, and I could probably pause for more dramatic effect. If you could like list off some baseball teams, some softball teams, try to pick what team is on, Penfield maybe, is it a Pittsburgh school, maybe McQuaid, Aquinas, like something like that. The East High Eagles, the only undefeated team left in all of baseball, all of softball, 17-0 on the season right now. And I know what you're thinking probably right now. AJ, big whoop. They're beating, the city schools. They're beating Monroe. They're beating School of the Arts. They're beating Northeast. I mean, congratulations on getting your wins, but hey, I mean, they just, the baseball isn't quite as good in the city. No, East is playing a county schedule with some city school teams. They've beaten Arcadia this year. They took down Mendon with authority. They beat Bishop Kearney twice. They beat Bloomfield. They beat Waterloo. They beat Webster Thomas. A really gosh darn good team. I'm saying gosh darn a lot today on the show. Olympia Odyssey with 2 wins. They just beat East Rochester today. So they are taking down county schools, city schools, whoever you put on their schedule. They are going to be a favorite, if not the favorite, in sectionals this year. Some of their top players so far this season, they've got a bunch of guys. Omar Rodriguez, he had 2 triples when I saw them take down Olympia Odyssey. Miguel Matos kind of leading the charge there. Carlos Gaston, Emil Diaz, Justice Robinson, Kyle Markham, Jack Everson. I was just looking for, some of their top performers. I kept finding different names, which is a sign of a good team. I mentioned I saw them against Olympia Odyssey. You really kind of couldn't tell, where the top of this lineup is and where the bottom of this lineup is, which is a really good sign. I think I went to, the RCAC championship game maybe 2 years ago. And, the top guys can play with just about anybody, but, you get to your 7, 8, 9 of the roster, you've got like a spunky 8th grader or something like that, or, your order runs out, which is where these schools really, have trouble with come sectional time. That's not East. East is really good, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the sectional playoffs.
A few days ago, I'm looking at the sectional standings for Class A, and I'm like, oh, East is at the top. But I don't know how great they are just because of the schedule that you think that they're playing. And then you come on the show and be like, hold on, CJ, hold on. Let me school you real quick. Let me tell you why you tripping and put some respect on the Eagles' names. Put some respect on the purple and gold. I mean, that win over Menden is nothing to sneeze at. I've seen Menden in the past, and that's a very quality win. To talk about the Thomas win, listen, I don't care who you're playing. Baseball is not it's not like football where like you can just line up from the person across from you and just like physically impose your will on them. Like you still got to swing it back, connect. And you do that 17 times and be victorious every single time. That's really impressive. I personally was very shocked that you told me they beat a couple county schools. I'm not gonna lie. And in the manner that they did it though, 9-2. I mean, shoot. Shout out to the Eagles for that. I'm still kind of in shock that you even found this, talked about this. The Eagles deserve all the love and then some for how they've started this year and continue to do until the end of this season.
Yeah, and a potential sectional title for East in Class A would be fairly unprecedented. The last title for East, 1967, way back in the day. Neither of my parents were born then. And then I believe I've got this right. You know, I did a fairly extensive check through the rankings. I believe the last RCSD team to win a sectional title is Marshall back in 1979, and Marshall doesn't exist anymore. So, or they've renamed it something else exactly. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But an East big run would certainly be something. Obviously, they've had great success in football this year. They made it all the way to the state semifinals. Basketball, obviously, of course, 20 some odd, whatever, sectional titles. But if East can go on a run, I think they would be without a doubt the story of the section, the spring season here in Section 5.
Yeah, far and away, by far the best story. And I think talk about the resurgence of some of the other teams in RCSD district, the Eagles baseball team able to continue that a little bit. You talked about girls basketball, trending up a little bit. Obviously, the boys have trended up for the past 2 years. Baseball in that direction too. That's really dope to see.
Yeah, football, Monroe, flag football as well, some of these schools. So it would be a really fun story if that comes to be. Let's go to our Eyes on You segment where we shine a spotlight on something that deserves a little love and attention from the recent days, the recent week. Carl, what you got your eyes on?
Yeah, not a team, not a moment. We're going to a player from Webster Schroeder, Miss Sarah Ferruzza. She is the all-time winningest athlete in Schroeder High School history. Actually, run that back a little bit. In Webster history, boys or girls, 179 wins. How is that possible? How are you doing that in one sport? Well, sis doing it in 3 sports. She was a state champion in volleyball this past fall. She was a state championship in the girls basketball team last spring, and then was a state championship in softball, I believe, two springs ago. So in
last spring, I think.
Last
was
spring.
it? Yeah. Two springs ago. Yep.
Phenomenal player. 12 varsity seasons. Like I said, she's not just on the team. She's not like just out there like sub her in and things of that nature. I first recognized her from the basketball court, and you obviously have the Mariah Watkins show. Bria Watkins is right behind her. Sarah Ferruzza's be out there knocking down them corner threes like it ain't nothing. She's a very important player. She's one of the taller players on the team, so she's a nice physical presence down low for them. Was a big presence for the volleyball team. Thad Brown's daughter was on the team, and he used to always talk about their team. So Ferruzza's name came up a few times in that way. And then she's the catcher on the softball team. So clearly she matters on that team as well. Just a remarkable achievement to have the discipline to play 3 sports, all 3 of them at a high level. At a school like Schroeder that has some athletic success, it's not like she's doing it at a school where they've never won a state championship. They've never had anything ever happen, no sectional titles. These schools has had a little bit of success before. Schroeder and Thomas, it don't matter. Pick your school. She's been the best to ever come through. The Twitter account says she's the GOAT. Who am I to argue that? Regardless, 3 state titles. Shout out to Miss Ferruzza for that accomplishment.
Yeah, the reason for the acknowledgement is they just at their softball game on Wednesday, they had a nice little ceremony. They honored her with a little plaque. Thad called her, to our knowledge, the only person to win a state championship in 3 different sports. Obviously, there's no real official way to do that record. I think if you were to think of indoor track and field and outdoor track and field. I think you might find someone with cross country and the 2 tracks. So it's a very, you know, muddled record, but either way, she might be the only person to do it in New York State history. So a really impressive season, career for her. And who knows? She's got 3 state titles so far. She might end with 4.
For real though, and I just want to really emphasize that she's just not out there. Like, we said her name on TV a lot on all these sports, all right, and not just basketball. Probably said it in volleyball a few times, and I know we said it in softball. Just once again, huge congratulations to the career that she's had and will have, I guess, the next month or so.
My eyes on you, team. We're going to go to flag football. Flag football just beginning their sectional play today with the pre-quarters, their first round action today. Team that ain't sniffing the pre-quarters because they are by far and away the best team in Class B1. The Batavia Blue Devils, 11-0 on the season. They've won all 11 of their games. They beat Athena, the second dog in Class B1, who has a 10-1 record. Beat him 38-6, which is quite a blowout there. Their 2 other games that were even close. Monroe, they beat 28-12. They were up 28-0 in that game. Northeast, they beat 38-22. They were up 32-0 in that game. Every other game, other than those, garbage time points, they won by at least 26 points on the season. Anna Varland, their star quarterback, she's dishing out touchdowns. She's running for touchdown. And Isabella Walsh, she had 4 touchdowns in a game that I saw against Monroe. Unfortunately, I was not at the first one, which was literally maybe could have been the best catch we saw in all of football. I saw it on the stream as I'm trying to watch who, got that first touchdown when it wasn't there. And my jaw just about dropped. We're going to play that for you right now. They tweeted it out, so we're going to have that video for you. But one-handed into doubles, triple coverage, going up for it. This was, sign her up for the boys team. Come on, Batavia. What are you doing here? So Batavia, 11-0 on the season, by far the favorites in Class B1. You might be able to put them in the championship game already, but Batavia flag football, I got my eyes on you.
Man, I got to, I believe these highlights aired when I wasn't at work. And then, you know how it goes. You watch our shows back on our off days, and I'm like, Batavia Monroe football. I know Monroe was good, so let me look at these highlights, right? And then, the first highlight, you said Varland's last name. I was like, all right, cool. Well, who's next? And then the next highlight, you said Varland's last name again. I said, okay, but all right, so who's next? Who else they got on this team? And then the third highlight was Miss Varland as well. I'm like, Lord have mercy. They got a ball player over there in Batavia. Then obviously Miss Walsh as well as the quarterback. Listen, really.
Other way around. Varland, the quarterback, Walsh, the receiver there.
So I actually had it the wrong way. Walsh was the name y'all kept saying on TV. Y'all kept saying she's the receiving all the touchdowns. I'm like, Lord have mercy. She is a phenomenal player, and the flag football in Section 5 has truly boomed over the past 3 years since its inception. 2-3 years ago? I think 30-something teams. The quality of play has improved so much. I remember that first year where the play calls were very generic and how they were getting lined up and things of that nature. Listen, they ain't got helmet and pads on, but you can look at certain concepts where real football, American padded football is incorporated into this game, man. It's super duper fun. And Batavia, I'm not surprised. They got a strong football program. They probably got the same playbook and said, listen, you saw what my man McFarland's did in the football. Let's do the same thing here. We got the athletes to do it. Phenomenal. I'm so happy that the girls are getting the love they deserve.
Yeah, right now, obviously we're still in its infancy. So you got some schools who have mastered the, kind of the technique, the skill, the strategy of football, the play calling, things like that. You got some schools who have the athletes, you can see the soccer players and things like that. And then you got a school like Batavia who's got both. So they're going to be really tough to take down, certainly in B1. And we're going to have state tournaments this year. So who knows? Batavia might be taking home a state championship later this year. We'll be keeping an eye on those flag football playoffs. We'll be keeping an eye on some other games as the regular season winds down. Carl, your game of the week you got your eyes on.
Boys lacrosse, Fairport taking on McQuaid, a possible sectional tournament preview. A team like Fairport, their end of their season is rough. They got Ron Coit this Saturday, McQuaid on Monday, and then they finish it off with Penn Yan, who's I believe a team in Class C or D. Are they in D this year?
D. Top dogs in D.
I don't care what class they in. They tough. So so that's a team that Fairport cannot overlook. That's their the end of their season. Can they make sure they end the season on a high note, right trajectory, so that they're feeling good into sectional play? And then McQuaid hasn't played a ton of Section 5 teams this year. In fact, they only played 6. Now, 11-2 record is really good on paper, and they have a bunch of scorers led by Johnny Football, a.k.a. Johnny Lacrosse, doing his thing this year, scoring, and then I believe Gian Greco as well doing his thing with the stick as well. So those two teams who make sure that they're heading in the right direction into tournament time. Fairport, making sure that you don't slide. You got 3 tough games. And then McQuaid, how are you stacking up with this Section 5 group that you haven't really seen a lot of this year?
Yeah, McQuaid's really been the only team to be ranked so far this year in Class A. Obviously, they're the only team ranked right now. But I would certainly, qualify Class A as a team that is kind of a top 4 between Pittsford, Penfield, McQuaid, and Fairport. If any one of those 4 teams won it. So the fact that McQuaid is pulling away with the record and the rankings and things like that, you're still going to be in for a really tough Class A bracket. My game of the week, I'm going to girls lacrosse, a showdown between the top dog in Class C so far this year, Mercy, and the top dog in Class D, Penn Yan. That'll be tomorrow, Friday the 10th. You got Bailey Cooper leading the way for Penn Yan, the Mustangs. 56 goals on the season, 4th in Section 5. 78 points this year, 3rd in Section 5. You got Mia Quagliarello, 23 assists so far in Section 5. I got the chance to see Mercy play against Aquinas, and they just blitz you. They're scoring like right off the face-off draw, the draw control. They got 3 in like the last minute of play. They just score ad nauseum. They put up 20-plus goals in that game, one of a few teams in Section 5 to do it so far this season. Penn Yan at 10-3 on the season. Mercy at 7-6 so far this year, playing a tough schedule. So a good tune-up for both of these teams as we get into sectional play with both of these teams right now, the poll leaders in their respective classes, Class C and D.
One, I'm still getting used to seeing Mercy anywhere but like A or B. So I was like, when you said they were in C, I'm like, wait a minute.
I've got my eyes on Mercy being in Class C. Let me just tell you that. I'm just like, all right, Mercy, I guess we can put you in Class C, but continue.
We'll see how they're counting their enrollment over there. But obviously, a team like that, regardless of what class they're in, they're always going to have a quality program. And then I just got to give a shout out to Bailey Cooper. You know how we talk about all the underclassmen on this show. Just a sophomore. She balling this year. 4th in Section 5 with goal scores with 56 of them things. I mean, she's going to be on either someone's player of the week, Section 5 best, on this TV show a bunch, with just how phenomenal she's playing. And she's going to have an opportunity against Mercy to show how well she fits in with the rest of Section 5. I mean, 56 goals ain't nothing to sneeze at. I don't care if we doing that in my backyard or in regulation play, whatever the case may be. Shout out to Bailey Cooper. She's been doing awesome things this year.
I was at Penn Yan's first game this year. They played at Irondequoit, and Bailey Cooper scored their first goal of the season. And one of the Penn Yan fans was like, all right, Bailey, leading goal scorer to start the year. And someone chimed in like, yeah, she'll probably stay that way for the entire season. So they knew what was up very early so far this season. Penn Yan, always a strong contender to not only compete in sectional play, but in the state tournament play as well. Not as much for the girls. The girls have kind of had a little bit of a resurgence, though. Good to see Penn Yan kind of match the boys in all of the sectional titles that Penn Yan boys lacrosse has been winning. So that'll do it for us today on the show. Not going to have a show for you next Thursday due to some scheduling stuff. There's a chance we get some for you on Friday, but with the Amherst and all this stuff going on, safe to not make any promises with what goes on with our spring schedule. So we'll see you sometime soon. But if we don't listen to you, if you can't listen to us, things of that nature, obviously watch us on News 8, RochesterFirst.com, because we're at all these games. We just don't have a lot of time to sit down and talk about them. But that'll do it for us today on the High School Huddle, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, RochesterFirst.com, and YouTube. For Carl Jones, I'm AJ Feldman. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we will see you next time.